To weigh in on this recent development and other political issues out of the recently concluded elections, we have political scientist Antonio Contreras. Professor, good evening and welcome once again to The Big Story.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Well, our first question is the new complexion of the Senate. Do you think, as shared by many, do you share the opinion of many that it's dead in the water because of the new numbers?
Well, first of all, we know that impeachment is actually a political process, but it also quasi-judicial. And so if the evidence are overwhelming, the Senate will be hard put to explain their vote, why they're not going to consider the evidence. If it is just a game of numbers, they have to be aware and they have to take the risk that the people will be judging them in a sense that they're not doing the country favor by just voting because of partisan considerations. There will be pressure on the Senate, actually, in fact, because if the evidences are so blatant, like openly threatening the life of the president, the speaker, and the first lady, that's an open shut case, that is an impeachable offense. So if you're going to say no, 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 it's okay for a government official to do that, then there is the issue of what is ethical and what is moral, and not just what is illegal. So there will be really be well, I would say people will be looking at them. They're going to expect from them. So there will be pressure.
And the public, of course, while they may have the political numbers, they are also answerable to the public.
Oh yes, and the complexion of the electorate is quite exciting right now. If you're going to judge it on the result of the senatorial elections, too many unexpected, too many unpredictable things can happen, and there is the Gen Z vote. There is the issue about more progressive voices coming out. A lot of incumbents are losing in some areas. Political dynasties are falling apart and are being toppled. So if I were the Senate, I'm not going to, I'm not going to play with this kind of electorate.
So in short, Professor, it is 2028 that will actually be dictating how the tides will turn for Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial.
But you have to understand also, some of the senators have presidential ambitions, right? And so it will do them well to impeach her, to eliminate from the contention. So that's one factor that needs to be,
But how will that interplay with the reaction, that overwhelming, if you want to call it sympathy or protest, after the former President Rodrigo Duterte was taken to The Hague? I mean, we saw the reaction of the electorate to that.
Well, I'm not even sure about that. It's very. I caution people from interpreting the result as a referendum on the performance of the Dutertes. I don't see that happening in the House of Representatives as well. We have many re-electionists won. In Davao alone, only Davao City gave the Duterte vote. But if you're going to look at the 5 Davao provinces, it's mainly dominated by the administration coalition. So that's one thing that we need to be very cautious about. The victories of Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan should also be interpreted differently. So Bongo won as Bongo.
May I interrupt, Prof? You mentioned Bam
Yes.
Aquino, but he was supported by the INC. Do you think that will compromise his vote, his stance?
Yeah, well, many people are saying that maybe that's a quid pro quo for the endorsement, that he's going to vote against impeachment. But you have to understand that BAM has also plans for 2028. BAM would probably be looking at his political future as well, and his base, the one that propelled him mainly, would be the base that would like to see accountability being imposed on the vice president. And one thing that I think the numbers don't give us a lot, if you look at the vote of Ilocos Norte and Ilocos Sur, Bam was number 6 in Ilocos Norte, and he was number 7 in Ilocos Sur. Meaning even the Ilocano vote, even the Marcos base voted for him. So it's not just the INC who gave him the victory. It's a Gen Z. It may have helped But without the INC, he could have still won because of the different dynamics. Many surveys failed to take into account the young voters, and they also failed to take into account many things. I think the problem with the survey firms right now is that their sample, their panel is so outdated that needs to be adjusted for young voters.
We remember you sharing your thoughts on surveys in our last
Yes,
interview.
yes.
But we should also try to look at it from the angle of the administration. A lot of people, of course, you always say that the midterm polls is a referendum on the current administration. With only 5 bets getting in from the Alianza slate, what do you make of the current administration? Is it really an early lame duck in your opinion?
Well, every administration is a lame duck after the midterms, and the midterms is always hard for the incumbent. But you know, our elections are won and lost by personalities, never by party alliances. In the Philippines, a party is like our clothes you wear. You can, take it off the next day. It's not an ideological anchor that can be used as basis for people to decide, unlike the Republicans and Democrats, for example, or the Labor Party and the Conservative Party, where you have ideologies. Here, what is the ideology that separates Lakas from PDP Laban, for example? So I caution people from interpreting outcomes of elections based on issues. That's not the point. The point is more personality. So perhaps the slate that was offered by the administration is lackluster. There's no excitement there, so perhaps that's they lost. You look at the House, for example. We always look at the Senate, but if you look at the House, it will still be dominated by pro-administration members.
Okay, so Professor, just going back to our discussion on the impeachment, taking a look at the composition of the Senate for the 20th Congress, can we get your fearless forecast? Will Vice President Sara Duterte secure the 9 votes she needs to be acquitted?
Well, actually, let me put it this way. She has the numbers, but she's not sure if she will be acquitted. And I would look forward more to the presence of Chair Diokno and Laila de Lima in the prosecution panel, and with Jinky Luis through there as well. It's going to be exciting. It's something that I even told a friend, maybe this is going to survive the impeachment vote, but that's only after going through hell of a prosecution.
Prof, may conflict of interest po ba yun now that partyless representatives Laila de Lima and Chel Diokno are a part of the prosecution panel?
I don't think that would be a valid point to raise in an impeachment, because it's basically the prosecutors and the judges are basically electors. So if you say that, you can also say that maybe if that is the case, then we should also exclude Marcoleta, who is going to be a senator judge, but at the same time, when he was in the House, he was adamantly pro-Duterte. So if you're going to use that angle.
Professor, I'm curious if you think there will be leadership shakeups in the lower house and the upper chamber. What do you think?
Well, there are talks now that maybe Soto is going to return as president, and maybe Speaker Romualdez will be replaced, but these are all speculations for now. It's for the House and the Senate to choose who's going to be the Speaker and the Senate President. I wouldn't be surprised if there will be changes.
Let's go to the local race. Can you just identify several areas where, you were taken by surprise?
Cebu, for example, is a surprise. Gwen Garcia losing to Baricuatro is a surprise. Joey Salceda losing in Albay is a surprise. That's something. Here in Laguna, many people expected Ruth Hernandez to win, but Sol Aragones won. And there are many, like in Catanduanes, the Cuas were toppled by a professor, by a university, by an academic. So there are so many other things. And yet there also remained dynasties that are, still there. The Villafuertes of Camarines Sur still lord over my home province. So, there are surprises and there are not surprises. But let me put it this way. This election has exciting results. Many unexpected results.
Yes, I remember your mood before the elections was a bit pessimistic. You seem more energized.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm surprised. There's hope. But at the same time, I caution people to like, for example, let me just very quickly, in terms of Bam and Kiko's victory. I would even argue that Bam and Kiko were actually helped by the Marcos base, partly because of the Ilocos vote. Kiko was number 12 and Ilocos Sur and number 13 in Ilocos Norte. So, if the people who wanted Sara to be impeached, they should have voted for Binay or Abalos to squeeze out Villar and Marcos out of the Magic 12. But the pink base was very purist in orientation. They don't want to compromise. So I could
Okay,
even say, yeah.
may I follow up on that because you mentioned Region 1? Could there have been admin support for the two because exactly of the impeachment trial?
And there's also been talk of that, Professor.
Possibly.
It's
And
not
what is
pink wave, but admin command votes.
Yeah, precisely, it could be possible. But the pink wave actually helped. But the pink wave had some actually backlash because of the when Robredo endorsed, for example, Abalos and Pacquiao, she was criticized. So it is a purist attitude of the pinks that forced them not to compromise and not have go into strategic voting. And this is the reason why you have Villar and Aimee on Magic 12. It could have been if they only voted for Abalos or Binay or together with Bam, then probably Villar and Marcos should have been out in the Magic 12.
And
So
interestingly,
it's their
Professor,
fault.
after the elections, President Marcos did release a statement, and it ended with the words, "Sa gobyernong tapat, kasama ang lahat." Just taking a look at gobyernong tapat, I mean, that was very similar to the campaign messaging of former Vice President Leni Robredo. How should we be reading into that?
Well, you see, there are now three major political groups in the country. You have the Marcos loyalists, you have the pink, red, yellows, and you have the Duterte opposition. So, in order for Duterte not to return, there has to be an alliance between the Marcos and the traditional opposition.
And that's
If there would be
exactly...
three factions, the Dutertes have an upper hand.
A lot of the so-called pinks were not very pleased when they saw former VP Robredo, trying to make these alliances. But just what you said, just like what you said, rather, if she is going to be running or making another go for 2028, then these alliance makings are going to be par for the course. Do you think that will alienate her base?
Well, I think politics is the art of the possible and compromises. If you're going to be purist about politics, then it's not a winning strategy. And you also have to remember, I think people are looking at Leni too much. They're forgetting that there is a new dark horse coming out, which can be presidential in 2028, and that is by the name of Bam Aquino.